There's a fence post standing in a garden in Kyoto that was put in the ground 80 years ago. No pressure treatment, no synthetic sealant, no chemical preservative, just wood, burned, deliberately, on the outside. Pull it out of the ground today and the base is solid. No rot, no soft spots, no crumbling. Just black, charred wood that hasn't moved in 8 decades. $0 of materials. One afternoon, 80 years of protection. I'm not going to tell you this is some obscure technique that nobody outside Japan knows about. Architects and builders across Europe and North America have been rediscovering it for the last 20 years. It has a name, Shou Sugi Ban, or in modern Japanese, Yakisugi. Yaki means to burn. Sugi means cedar. And the reason it works is honestly kind of beautiful once you understand it. You already know this. You've seen it your whole life and never connected the dots. That's why the end of a burnt match doesn't rot in water. That's why charred wood from an old campfire sits on the ground for years without decomposing. That's why ancient civilizations drove charred wooden stakes into the ground for foundations that lasted centuries. Fire doesn't destroy wood's durability. Under the right conditions, it creates it. Here's what's actually happening when wood burns on the surface. Wood rots because of 3 things: moisture penetrating the fibers, insects boring into the grain, fungal spores finding purchase in the surface. When you char wood, the surface transforms completely. The carbon layer that forms is hydrophobic. It actively repels water. Insects don't eat carbon. Fungal spores can't colonize it. The 3 attack vectors that destroy wood are eliminated simultaneously by a process that costs nothing and takes 20 minutes. But here's what most people don't know, and this is the part that changes everything. The char layer doesn't just protect the surface. It creates a sacrificial barrier that weathers slowly from the outside in, while the wood beneath it stays completely intact. As the outermost char gradually weathers away over decades, it exposes fresh char underneath. The protection regenerates itself, slowly, continuously, without any intervention. Japanese cedar farmers on the island of Yakushima were using this technique as far back as the 1400s. They needed fence posts and building timbers that would survive the island's extreme humidity, one of the wettest climates on Earth. Rain every single day. Tropical temperatures. Conditions that destroy untreated wood in 2 to 3 years. Charred cedar posts lasted decades. Some lasted generations. The technique spread to the Japanese mainland and became standard construction practice for rural buildings across the country. In the city of Nara, traditional machiya townhouses built with yakisugi siding have been standing for over 200 years. Their exterior walls are still intact, still black, still protecting the structure beneath. In Norway, archaeologists have found charred wooden pilings from Viking-era harbor structures dating to approximately 900 AD, still solid after 1,100 years in wet soil. In ancient Egypt, charred acacia wood was used for structural elements in tombs that have survived 3,000 years of desert conditions. 3 civilizations, 3 continents, all arriving at the same conclusion independently. Fire makes wood last. The reason this never became mainstream in modern construction is straightforward. Pressure-treated lumber generates billions of dollars annually for chemical manufacturers. Synthetic sealants, stains, and preservatives need to be reapplied every few years. A technique that costs nothing, uses no proprietary chemicals, and lasts a century doesn't generate recurring revenue. You can't sell someone a subscription to fire. So nobody with a financial interest in your wood preservation dependency has ever had a reason to put this in front of you. Here's exactly how to do it. And I want to be clear about something first. This is genuinely one of the simplest wood preservation techniques that exists. But there's one mistake that almost everyone makes the first time, and it completely ruins the result. I'll show you that in a moment. The tools. A propane torch, the kind used for plumbing or soldering. Available at any hardware store for $20 to $30, or free if you already own one. A wire brush, a cloth or natural bristle brush, Optional, linseed oil for finishing. That's it. Total cost, $0 if you have a torch, $20 to $30 if you need to buy one. And that torch lasts forever. The technique: work on dry, bare wood only. If the wood has an existing finish, paint, varnish, stain, strip it first. The torch needs to reach the raw wood fiber. Hold the torch 2 to 4 inches from the surface. Move it continuously, never hold it in one place. You're not trying to set the wood on fire, you're trying to char the surface evenly. The color you're looking for is a deep, consistent black with a slightly raised grain texture, like alligator skin. That texture tells you the char has penetrated approximately 1 to 3 millimeters into the fiber, deep enough to be effective, shallow enough to preserve structural integrity. Now here's the mistake most people make. They stop too early. A light brown scorch does almost nothing. The protection comes from genuine char, deep black, slightly crusty, with that raised grain texture. If it looks toasted, go deeper. If it looks burnt through, you went too far. Deep black with texture. That's your target. Once charred, take the wire brush and brush the entire surface firmly. This removes loose carbon that would otherwise flake off and leaves a smooth, durable char layer bonded to the wood beneath. This step is not optional. Unbrushed char flakes. Brushed char lasts decades. Optional finishing step: wipe a thin coat of raw linseed oil over the brushed surface. The oil penetrates the char layer and the wood beneath it simultaneously, locking in the carbon, adding a second layer of moisture resistance, and giving the surface a deep, almost lacquered appearance. One coat. Wipe off the excess. Let it cure for 24 hours. What to use it on: fence posts, especially the buried section. Char the bottom 18 inches before they go in the ground. That's where rot starts. That's where you need protection most. Garden beds, the interior faces that sit against wet soil. Shed and outbuilding siding and full exterior treatment. Tool handles. A light char seals the grain against moisture and prevents the handle from drying and cracking. Deck posts and structural timbers, any wood in ground contact or exposed to persistent moisture. One treatment, applied correctly, lasts 50 to 100 years. The thing about this that stays with me is how thoroughly disappeared from mainstream knowledge. Japanese carpenters were teaching this to their apprentices for 600 years. Viking shipwrights were using it on harbor pilings that are still solid today. Egyptian builders used it on structures that have outlasted every synthetic material ever invented. And somewhere in the last 100 years, as the hardware store filled up with branded wood preservatives in branded containers with warning labels on the side, this knowledge stopped being passed down. The fence posts treated with it are still standing. The knowledge had to find its own way back. $0. One afternoon, and it's back in your hands. I don't know what brought you here. Maybe it's the fence that's starting to go soft at the base. Maybe it's the garden beds that need replacing every 3 years. Maybe it's the shed siding that's showing its age. Maybe you just wanted to know what Japanese carpenters knew for 600 years and ended up here at midnight following a question you couldn't stop. It doesn't matter. The fire works either way. Now you know how. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.